Andy here. I'm back with my Sony Xperia Z3, many thanks to clove.co.uk for lending me the device. Now, you may or may not be aware, but Sony have stepped up to a 6-month cycle on their phone. So the Z1 was only 12 months ago, the Z2 was 6 months ago, and the Z3 is here. And in theory, I guess the Z4 is only 6 months away. Well, not even 6 months away now, because this has been out for a month or two. So I suppose a lot of people will be asking, well, ooh, should I upgrade? I've got the Z2 or I've got the Z1 even. What am I missing out on? On paper, the Z3 and the Z2 look very similar. So what I'm going to do in this review, I'm not going to review the phone as a whole. I'll try and point out basically what's different to the Z2. My Z2 review was actually quite comprehensive. If you can, sit through that, and then maybe sit through this, and I'll explain what the differences or upgrades are really for the Sony Xperia Z3. As with the Z2, it has the glass front and the glass back. Very similar design. One thing you notice almost straight away, hopefully, is the edges. So the Z2 was, although they were kind of rounded, they were also sort of squared off. It's almost like 3 different angles making it kind of rounded, whereas this actually is rounded. And I have to say I much prefer that design over the Z2 and I think the Z1 design. So once again, it's what I call slabo phone, so it is just a nice rectangle of phone. It's not curvy, it doesn't rock on the desk. It does still slide around on the desk though, unfortunately, which I find a little annoying, but I guess that's the price you pay for the glass back. I've read that the corners are impact resistant as well. You see how it's got that extra sort of, it's a different element there. So I've read that it will take quite a drop on a corner. I'm not prepared to try that on a phone I don't own. The buttons are probably even more subtle than they were on the Z2. You can see that there. So I mean, as you might see in the unboxing, I even got mixed thinking that might have been a button, because it looks, you know, it's not that different to the actual volume rocker. The power button being the silver one that stands out. I'm not sure I like the silver button standing out. I'm not sure I wouldn't have preferred just another black button keeping that sleek look along the edge. The dedicated camera button like the Z2, which can be used to wake the phone if you hold it, and it'll go straight into the camera. Again, just like the Z2, you can have it take a picture if you hold it long enough and all that sort of thing. One relatively large change is the SIM card has moved away from the charging point, so the SIM card is now over on the other side with the micro SD port, which I think is much more logical place for it to be. That one, you know, that should stay closed pretty much all the time now, and you'll just obviously unplug to plug in, basically. Sony's proprietary connector, just like the Z2, lanyard. The speaker design is slightly different, so it's got sort of actual cutouts within the glass there. I think before it was just almost along the edge that it appeared. Once again, it's, well, no, actually not once again, sorry, it's IP68 certified. I think the Z2 wasn't as high as that, but they both just say 1 meter and 30 minutes, so for dustproof and water resistant, so I'm not entirely sure what the difference is there. You may have seen I've done a shower test with this Z3, tried to operate it in the shower. It didn't fare well in operating, in being operated, or, you know, I couldn't really use it, but it was fine. It didn't, you know, I didn't break it. It still works. One of the other differences, it's the Z1, the Z2, the Z3. Each time it's got slightly lighter. So now the Z3 is 11 grams lighter, down to 152 grams. There's almost a millimetre, and I know it doesn't sound a lot, but there's almost a millimetre off each dimension, including the thickness. I think it was 0.9 of a millimetre, and it does feel very good in the hand. It is a very nicely designed phone. Hardware wise, almost identical to the Z2. The processor has stepped up to a 2.5 GHz quad-core Crate 400, whereas before the Z2 was 2.3. Still the Adreno 330 and still the Snapdragon 801. The screen as well has the same resolution, I believe. 1080 by 1920 over the 5.2 inches gives 424 pixels per inch, which I think is good enough for anyone really. The speakers, I think they sound good. Let's give a quick blast.
brand new icon for the Google Play Store. This is it's at the top of the post, Brian. If you scroll up, the brand new icon. I think this is the.
So it sounds very good. It's not quite got the volume that I would want. Apparently it's the first device with high-res audio which supports DSD playback. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it talks about being able to not upgrade, I've forgotten the word now, regular MP3s, it will upscale, sorry. So it's kind of like a high def audio, I suppose, in some ways. As with the Z2, it's a great looking screen. Really is very good. See, I've got a picture that shows some. I could just look at one of the photos, like I suppose. Again, I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera, but it's a really clear screen, great viewing angles. I find it slightly dimmer. If you leave it on auto, if I was to put it next to a different device, like my Note 3 on auto or my Nexus 5 on auto, it's not as bright, but obviously you can clear all that. We can go to brightness and then change the auto's kind of defaults, because in the morning actually it's quite bright when I wake up and the room's dark. I do have to slide it down to that end. Well, that's very dark. I can barely see it now. Come back. But yep, very good screen. I don't know how much it is better than the Z2, but definitely it's a lot better than the Z1 from what people have said, really. The camera is an upgrade. So although the specs initially make you think it's a bit similar, it's a 20.7 megapixel camera with I need to check, sorry, let me just double check the front facing camera. 2.2 megapixel, sorry, which will record at 1080p. The rear facing camera will record 4K. Now, so like I say, I'm kind of on spec. I use GSM Arena a lot just to look through specs of devices, and they look almost exactly the same. But actually, the camera is a new 25mm wide-angle lens and has a new improved ISO of 12800, which is very high. That should mean that obviously dark shots come out just a little bit better, maybe not quite so much noise. And generally, I found the camera to be good. I wouldn't say amazing, but definitely good. Good detail. These are the 20 megapixel. By default, they take 8, like the Z2, they take 8 megapixel. We have to go to manual, so the detail there I think looks very crisp. Handled the really bright background I was inside there, they handled that quite well. So I would say, I've seen some people saying they're a bit disappointed by the camera. And I know I was on the Z2, it really struggled in darker areas. I've not really tested the Z3 as well as I tested the Z2. I've not been to those I've not been in those situations where I've been able to test it as much, I suppose. Same use of the button as with the Z2, so I won't go too much over that. I do like the dedicated button. Although one thing I've realised actually, when you're taking photos, using the button means there is more of a chance of camera shake. So actually you hold it steady and tapping on the shutter on the screen is probably preferable. I'd never really realised and sort of thought about it before, but actually you have to press that quite hard to actually take the photo. Well, not hard I suppose, but I just think there might be that little bit of shake or movement as you take it, whereas if you tap in the screen, I suppose you might actually tap and move the screen, but if you've got a decent grip it won't. So just a thought I had on actually, are dedicated buttons as good as we think? There are a few extra modes in the camera. There's some quite fun ones here with where you can basically have things not interact, but appear within the view, and in theory they stay put. As you move the camera around, they stay put on the scenery, and obviously you can film, you can photo these things happening. Kind of fun. I'm not sure how much use I would have for it, but kind of fun. The software, so again, this generally it's the same as that we've seen on the Z2, but there are a few bits and pieces extra, like LifeLog, for example. LifeLog's an interesting idea. It tries to log everything I'm doing through the day, and generally it doesn't do too bad a job. So as I slide back through, so you can see when I got back from the gym, I took a few photos, and if I tap on the camera, it says, look, there they are, they're the photos that I took, and I can tap on that, I think, yep, and I can go straight to that photo. Communication, I use Google Plus for a minute, Facebook for a minute, so you'll be able to see if you're using certain apps a long time. I was on the phone, I spoke to a family member on the phone for 11 minutes. And down below it tries to summarise all the things that... So what did I think I was doing there? I was on YouTube for 10 minutes. Yeah, I was at the gym watching some YouTube videos, taking 12 photos. What was that one? So I was on the phone for 11 minutes. I was looking at, yep. Communication, 21 minutes. I thought it said, yeah, so it says 8 minutes there, never mind. Yeah, so you can kind of slide back through your day. Was I walking? I did go on the bike to the gym. That's put me in a little bus look. In fact, I can play. I'm not really. Come on, get on with it. Oh, I'm burning calories in my sleep. Look at that. Okay, so it doesn't really. You do see all these bits down the bottom are changed. You don't particularly see what's going on up here. We can go back to previous days. I mean, sometimes I find it's not that so. Okay, I think it has updated. I think sometimes it just takes a long time to update. So I had quite a busy day Sunday. I went paintballing. And when I got home it was empty and I waited, I set it to refresh and it didn't. Beyond parts of it, so yeah, travel, rain. I like how the weather changed a little behind. Actually it wasn't raining where I was, but and then travel in. So it doesn't really, so I went, all this time I was paintballing, okay, it was just sat in the locker, but it doesn't say, it doesn't particularly show that actually does it if I go to, right, if I go to there. So I can look in the map, there I was near Hemel. So you can see where you were at different points as well. So I mean, it's interesting. It, like I say, it seems to take a little bit long sometimes to update. When I look at the end of the day, it's just not there. But I look back now and it is. So I'm not sure what that's about. Another thing that is new for the Z3 is remote play. You can play PS4 games like you would if you were on a Vita. It talks about being able to use the dual stick control and stuff. I don't have a PS4. I'm not much of a gamer, so I can't really tell you too much about that. But maybe even just what I've said makes sense to you. Fine. This is funny because I mentioned this in my Z2 video that I didn't like. That when I went to most used, I just got, what was it, 20 perhaps, I think, yeah. And I couldn't swipe through to the other most used. Like it didn't go all the way down to the least used, if that makes sense. And they've changed it, look. So all my most used apps first, and then gradually it's getting lower and lower, and then the ones that I barely use at all. Surprisingly, I suppose I've not been in the gym much. So yeah, they've been watching, have Sony been watching my videos? Maybe. But yeah, so that's nice. The keyboard, I know I moaned in the last one about the keyboard. It's not a great deal different, but it does seem to have got better. Generally, seems to do a better job of recognising, although that did a terrible job, look. Recognising my swipes. It's not particularly. I remember with the Z2, I got quite annoyed at times that it just didn't seem to understand what I was trying to type. The Z3, I think it's better. I mean, someone might tell me it's exactly the same. It's done nothing, but it hasn't annoyed me like the Z2 has. Then we move on to the battery. You could say that that's perhaps one of the key selling points for the Z3. I've been really impressed by the battery. I mean, it's no secret. There's lots of stuff on the internet and forums about. So I've not had anything turned on to help it. But if we go to battery usage, I'm at 1 day 7 hours with 28% left. Now I'm not a heavy user. 2 hours 18 minutes over those sort of yesterday and so far today. Today is almost coming to 3 o'clock. So that's not a lot. I'm sure some people in that time would have 4 hours usage, but at the same time, I've been to the gym where I use it a lot. I'm listening to music, I'm turning it on and off, recording what I've lifted. I actually used it for sat-nav, so you can see their maps. I don't know if it tells us. Yeah, so it was about 30 minutes. I was driving home. I didn't plug it in. So I guess that might have been me driving home, that bit there. I didn't even realise. Yeah, so Wi-Fi's been on the whole time, I didn't realise. So you can see there, it's not charged at any point. So, and it was, what did it say it thought we had left? Estimated battery time 11 hours, 16 hours in standby mode. So, in other words, that's easily getting through this second day. And for me, that's been quite heavy use. Like I say, I've used sat-nav for half an hour. That burns battery. I've only made 1 or 2 phone calls. I've been taking a few photos. It's for my use, it's been quite a lot. For others, I'm sure not as much. But there are phones that would have well, they just wouldn't have lasted this far, definitely, without doubt. So the Z3's battery really is very good. And a general usage through the day, I don't think I've ever really finished a day with less than 60%. So really very impressive. So I have to say, quite often when I review phones, I get glad when I get to the review and I can go back to my own device. I love my Note 3 right now. I'm really looking forward to the Note 4. And sometimes I'm using a device that it's just kind of, oh, the screen's a bit small, or speaker's not very good, or camera's not very good, battery, you know, so many things that perhaps don't quite meet up to, in my opinion, the Note 3. But actually, the Z3, really very good device, and I would be perfectly happy if someone said, Andy, you need to use that for the next year. I'd probably, yeah, okay, I can live with that. Maybe the speakers, they're a little bit quiet for my liking. I like listening to my podcast in the morning. Sometimes there's noise going on, the kettle's boiling and things, and I struggle to hear the Z3 over the kettle boiling, my kettle test, whereas the Note 3 I just can. But actually the whole sort of feel in the hand, the design of the device, the performance, the screen, the camera's good, the battery life is amazing. The battery life probably beats my Note 3, even though it's 100 milliamp hours less than the Z2. I'm not sure what they've done, but they've done a great job. Some of the extra bits of the software, I'm not a big believer in using manufacturer's software. Generally there's just as good stuff, if not better, on the Play Store. But actually, yeah, I think the Z3, really nice device. So, is it worth the upgrade? If you're on a Z1, yeah, I would say so. Obviously, depending on how you can do it, if you're going to buy it outright, say Z1, that's your call, I suppose, but it is a much better phone than the Z1. Is it much better than the Z2? Probably not much better. The batteries I think, seems to be better. The camera is better. The design is better, but is it a huge amount better? That's kind of your call, I suppose, really. Then we get to the 6-month cycle. I'm sure a lot of people are probably quite annoyed by that. Oh, why'd you bring the phone out? You know, I'll buy one phone, it's out of date in 6 months. Well, not really. Is it really any different if they didn't release that phone? You've still got a 6-month-old phone. You know, it's smaller steps more frequently. I think that's a good thing. Anyone that wants to upgrade every 6 months, they can do. That's better than having to wait a year, isn't it? And those that are just doing it on their cycle, their 2-year cycle, well, surely it's a better thing that when your upgrade comes round, you know you're getting a phone that is no older than 6 months old. Surely that's a good thing. If your contract was ending 9 months through a cycle, a yearly cycle, do you wait? You have to wait 3 months for the new phone, or you get one that's 9 months out of date. Whereas if it's a 6-month cycle, you get one that's 3 months out of date. With technology, you're never going to be at the cutting edge for very long. It doesn't matter if you buy a device, someone else is going to release something in the next few months that's going to pip this to the post. So actually, I think if they can do it every 6 months, I think it's a good thing. I suppose a little bit like Samsung, just kind of throwing loads of devices at you. Even then, though, they've generally got a 12-month cycle for their big phones, their top-end devices. So I think it's a good thing. What more can I say? The Z3, very nice device. It is an upgrade on the Z2, not massive, but the Z2 is a good device. The Z3 is a very good device. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. My name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.